Looked at this, and I've always wondered why in the world, if you go back 25 or 30 years ago to regular life insurance agents, New York Life, Prudential, MetLife, it doesn't matter. That life insurance agent did what? They went out and they sold insurance. They were like the turtle because they spent 90% of their time prospecting and 10% of their time selling. So what happened in this process, when they were the employee, that guy right there, all he could see was his own pen's production. If I wanted to recruit George and I was this guy here, what I did is I recruited George and I would get $300 to $500 off of his first 5 sales. That was the extent of it. That was not a business opportunity. That was a job, and it was a pretty good one. The really good ones made a lot of money because they were good prospectors. But the majority of them made about $35,000 a year. What Symmetry has done through our lead program is, now how many people can you recruit to that job? Not very many. Your pond for recruiting, Brad, is not very big. But suddenly Symmetry throws into the mix something we call leads. Now what happens is, this now becomes a self-employed business because I can teach Marshall how to sell insurance and he doesn't have to prospect. My pond for recruiting now is huge. That's what this has done here. Now Symmetry has added the bridge to go over into the business model so that now we have the opportunity to teach Marshall, to teach Larry, to teach, and we have a whole organization. Connie and I, thank you very much, man after my own heart. Now we've got an opportunity to create a business model that allows us to recruit in 34, 40, 50 states around the country. Whole different perspective today. That was an epiphany for me. Thank you. Okay. I hope that resonates with somebody. One of the things to remember, we talked a lot today about going into the house, talking about insurance. That's very important. And I'm going to talk at the end about a second sale. But before I get there, I don't want anybody in this room to ever forget the fact, when you go into that home, you have been invited into that house for one reason and one reason only. They sent this lead letter back. They wanted some help on mortgage protection. When I started doing this 19 years ago, at that point in time, I would go into the house. We live in Charlottesville, Virginia. If any of you have got your life insurance or your mortgage or your car insurance with State Farm, you will know that is State Farm country. All my kids learned to drive in the State Farm parking lot because it was huge. They couldn't hit anything. Well, we're close to that area. So every time we would go in, this was a new industry. I would sit down and I'd talk to David, and David would say, well, I got to call my State Farm agent. So I'm going to give you some techniques I use later about overcoming that. But my point is, the State Farm people, if what we were selling sounded anything at all like life insurance, well, I got to call my State Farm agent. I used to drive the paramed people crazy. Because when we first started doing this, we didn't have simplified issue. And everything we wrote was fully underwritten, so we stuck everybody with a needle, everybody. I'd call the paramed people up, $119,000. Betty would say, Dick, where in the world do you come up with these $136,000? Where do you come up with these face amounts? Everybody sells $100 or $125 or $150 or $200,000, and you're selling $119,000? Yeah. Because if I sold them $125 or $150, what would they say? This sounds like regular life insurance. I'll call my State Farm agent. So there's some techniques that you need to learn along the way so that you're different. And that's part of what we're going to be talking about today. This lead is your best friend. And I found out a statistic this past week that absolutely blew my mind. I don't ever want anybody to call me and complain about bonus leads. And let me tell you why. The average A lead in America is called by the agent that bought it originally, and that isn't just with this company, this is nationwide, 1.7 times. They just paid $27 for that lead, and they don't even call it twice on average. Think about that for a little while. Our bonus leads are really a valuable resource, and that's something that we need to fully understand. Now let me ask you something. How many of you have ever been in a school play? I don't care, 3rd grade, 5th grade, say high school. All right, about half or a little over half of you. How many of you, if the play director said, now Connie, all you have to do, I'm giving you the script on Monday, the play's on Friday, just read through it a couple times and you'll be okay? How do you think that'd turn out for her? Probably not so well. It drives me crazy. We have got a script on video, and all your managers have got scripts that they've given you, and you talk to your agent after they've been in the field a week or 2 or 3 or 6 months. Have you watched the video on the in-home? Yeah, I've looked at it a couple times. Marshall, I want to do a swan dive off of a high bridge. We are on stage every single time we go into the house. And guys, this family right here, they don't deserve my 2nd best or my 4th best. They deserve an Academy performance every time, because if Jimmy doesn't come home, Christine is on the street in 6 months. They deserve your best every single time you go out. Not just once in a while, not part of the time, but all the time. Now, I'm real big on knowing before you go, and we're going to get to that in just a minute, but I want to concentrate on the in-home presentation, and I'm not talking necessarily about mine, I'm talking about a presentation. I don't care if you're selling boats, cars, motorcycles, airplanes, or Rolex watches. Okay? There's 5 parts of every sales presentation. The first part is the warm-up or the meet and greet. If you need help with that, we probably shouldn't be in this room, because this is selling at least 101. Right, so once we get through the warm-up or the meet and greet, the next part is what? The fact find. You got to know a little bit about how they're going to need this. Now, do I interrogate them? No. I just want to know a little bit about them, but the main reason I want to know something about them is it gives them a chance to kind of help create what we're doing. They feel like they help create this thing so that they feel, and they're not going to sit there and not pay attention, because you start asking them questions, now they got to answer. So you've kind of drawn them into the situation. So the fact find is really, really important in what you're going to do. Once you get to the fact find, now we need to educate. Why is that important? They sent the letter in, they want some life insurance. They don't know what this is all about. Simplified issue. You're new to the industry. This gentleman right here, what does that mean? He doesn't know because he's new to the industry. What do they know? Less. Yeah, I mean, he's got some idea what it is, but not much. So we need to educate him. We were in St. Thomas a year ago. I went down with the intention of trying to find a watch that I was going to buy. But not sure which one I want. There's a lot of watches out there. I should have taken Gene with me. But at any rate, I get down there, and we went to probably 5 or 6 different stores. And I would go in, all I wanted to know was, show me the array of watches you have and educate me on each one, on which one is the best to suit the need based on the budget I want. That's all I ask for. And I get in there, and this first place had some really nice watches, but I had nothing to base it on, nothing to compare it to. So I go to the next place. Well, they didn't carry it in the same brand the other guy had, so it didn't help me. By the 5th one, I just gave up. We're at the airport. And there's a kiosk at the airport in St. Thomas. And I walk up and I explain to the lady I've got an interesting watch. And I said, based on this budget, all these watches you've got here, which one is the best one for my need? She walked me right over to this particular kiosk. She said, this one here, this has this, this, and this. That's a good watch, but it's twice as much, and you don't get that much value for it. It has this and this, but unless you just want those specific things, that's not the best value. And she went through the whole thing. Got finished, I knew which watch I wanted, which brand I wanted. And if that woman would have had the style that I wanted in stock, she would have sold me a watch. She just didn't have the right one in there. But the education, folks, is very important with what you're doing. Understand that. present the numbers with emotion. We talked about emotional stories. Now, how many of you have had a little bit of trouble with, well, I got to think about it? Half of you are telling the truth and the other half are lying. Okay? You all have that problem.
My stack of followers.
This is the way that you can get around it. Remember, emotion sells. Now, this is a story that I tell. I present the numbers after I show them the prices. Now, remember, simplified issue is what? It's more expensive. Why? Because the company's taking all the risk. So the question should never be about the price, Brad. It should be, who do you want to take the risk? The insurance company, or do you want to take the risk through the blood work? Because State Farm is sticking you with a needle. Everybody else is sticking you with a needle, so what are we doing? If you get stuck with a needle, we're transferring the risk from the client, or from the insurance company to the client. So the question should always be, who do you want to take the risk? You ask a question that way, they want that cheap price, but tell me, they're not willing to take that risk. So when we get ready to present the numbers, Marshall, what we do, when I give them these higher prices, I need a high-pressure salesperson. I came out of the timeshare business. You ever been to a timeshare? How many of you been to a timeshare? Most of you. Don't answer this next question. Did you walk out with a week of timeshare? If you did, I know why you bought it, and I know how they sold you. That's another story. But at any rate, so when we present the prices, usually what do you see? Because it's more than they expected it would be in most situations. So right then and there, I need a TO. Now, for those of you who don't know what a TO is, if you've been in the car business, you know it. If you've been to a timeshare place, you've experienced it. That's the guy that comes in after the salesman's done to try to find out what we can do to help you make a decision that would be in your best interest, not theirs. But at any rate, I need a TO right then and there. I need somebody just pressure the daylights out of them. But I don't want it to be me. So how do I do that? So I'm talking to George, and George says, well, now what do you know think's coming next? So George says, well, George, let me explain to you what's going to happen next. Once you've made a decision, at that time we're going to take an application and a void check. I'm telling him what's coming. Once you sign the application, the void check, these plans here, without the blood work, take 3 to 5 business days to issue. Once it's issued, it's going to take me 3 weeks, Marshall, to get it through the mail. During that 3-week window after it's issued, if something happens to you, George, they're going to continue the underwriting as if you were still living. Now, this is my story. I don't care what you tell, but this is my story. They're going to continue the underwriting as if you were still living. We actually had that happen. If something happens to you during that period, they'll continue the underwriting as if you're still living. If they say, yes, we would have issued that policy, somebody's getting a check. We've actually had that happen. One of our managers in Charlottesville, Virginia, wrote a young lady up at 7:30 at night one night. 9:38 that night, she was killed in a car wreck. Her son graduated from college 10 years ago this last May. All these plans I've put together for you and Janet are set up the same way. While y'all are talking about that, do you mind if I use the restroom real quick? I like to leave the table. Why? Because I need a high-pressure salesperson, and I want Janet to get on him. Now, if I haven't given Janet enough information to close him, enough ammunition, that's my fault. So I've equipped the TO, in this case Janet, to work on him. It's a technique. I just had to make my own TO. I can't take one with me. I can't take Connie with me on every trip. You know, she's high pressure, let me tell you. So at any rate, so I've created my own TO. So when I come back to the table, oh, I meant to tell you, I do a Columbo. And I think, oh, we knew it was too good to be true. All that money back and no exam, we knew that was too good to be true. So, oh, I meant to tell you one other thing. This plan has got a special feature in it called it's a safety net. And what I mean by that is, let's roll the hands of time. Now what I'm doing is I'm painting a picture, and I want them to step into the picture. If they don't step in the picture, I don't have a chance of getting it. So I got to get them in the picture so they see it. So I'm out of the field, so I'm not doing this every day like I was.
Let's roll the hands of time. Roll the hands of time forward a little bit.
Let's roll the hands of time and head forward. One of you don't feel well. It's an emergency room. Tell this story in bullet points. It's an emergency room visit. It's not good news. You've got 11 months to live. Nobody's going to give you a job. you don't have any income, how do you make your mortgage payment? And you say that and pause long enough for them to think, oh my gosh. Let that sink in. They've never thought about that. How you going to pay the light bill? George, who's going to buy groceries? The reason I asked that question, this plan for $246,000 of coverage, this plan has got a safety net in it. If what we just described happened, they would give you $123,000 to live on the last year of your life. You pay your mortgage payment, pay the light bill, take a trip around the world. We don't care, but it's going to give you the opportunity to die in dignity. Now, most agents would stop there. That's a pretty good story, but I don't. But I got them on the ropes, and I'm keeping them there. I'm taking them to the ground. We had a situation 10 years ago in Southern California. Young couple, bullet points, 29-year-old, had a $500,000 mortgage, and they were both marathon runners. And they bought coverage for the mortgage. And after they bought it, they got to thinking, what in the world have we done? We're 29, we run marathons, what do we even need this life insurance for? One of their neighbors was a financial planner. And they got to talking to him, they said, you know, this is what we did, and we took this money back. And he goes, oh my gosh, that's the craziest thing I ever heard. You're 29, you run marathons, you don't have any children, what do you even need any life insurance for? And she's saying, yeah, what do we need this for? He said, let's take that money you're putting into that policy and put it over here for your retirement. And the husband got to thinking, you know, we pay our bills, but we're not very good savers. Rich, we're going to keep the insurance. 2.5 years later, she wakes up in the middle of the night, excruciating pain, emergency room visit, aggressive cancer, 11 months to live, and the doctor told him, he says, your only hope is an experimental drug, and your HMO doesn't buy experimental drugs. You need $100,000 to start this treatment. She's going to die. They don't have $100,000. On the way home from the oncologist, he reminds her of that policy they bought. This is what I call the Becky story. And she said, John, I've already thought of that. We've made 29 payments of $86.34 on my part of the life insurance policy. There's no way in the world they're going to give us $200,000. To get home, she goes to bed depressed. He calls the agent up. The agent says, John, get Becky back up. I went through this 7 months ago with another client. Meet me at the doctor's office in 2 hours. Within a matter of days, they used $200,000 of their $250,000 that they could have taken. She took the experimental drugs. She's alive and well today and has 3 kids. And I have thought 1,000 times, I wonder if that financial planner even realizes how close he came to giving her a death sentence. But Janet and George, these plans here, and I go right back into the close. So I come back to the table and give them one more benefit and one more emotional story. Now, how many of you think I do that part of the time? How many of you think I do it most of the time? Really? Most of the time? All the time. Every single time I'm in the house, that is exactly what I do. Every single time. The first story is a joy story. And incidentally, that happened to me. I wrote that young lady up at 7:30 at night, 9:38 that night. She was still in the car wreck. She was a friend of mine. The Becky story is not me. That was one of our agents out in Southern California a number of years ago that did that case there. But every single time, that's exactly what I do. Now, when I go into the house, do I change my presentation based on the client, the size of the mortgage, or anything? No. Because if you don't do the same thing every time, what happens? When the wheels fall off, and David, did the wheels ever fall off?
Yeah.
I don't care how good you are, the wheels will fall off, Brad. And when they do, if you don't know what you're doing, how in the world do you know how to put them back on again? So we do the exact same thing every single time. The in-home presentation is designed to be exactly the same. Now you're going to have to adjust slightly, but I took an agent with me in Sacramento a few months ago. And this woman, buddy, she was saluting. She'd take me way out here and I'd have to jerk her back again. Way out here and bring her back. When we got out back in the car, he says, I cannot believe. I asked him, I said, what did you learn on this? He said, it's amazing to me how you would let her run out there. If you've ever been fishing very much, you let the bass go as far as you can, and then you reel them back in again. And that was the thing that he noticed that we did. But we did everything exact. And the other thing he said is, I was amazed. He said, you do the same thing in the house exactly the way you did it in the laboratory when you were training us 2 hours earlier. Almost word for word. So come back and give them one more benefit. Know before you go. That is extremely important. Now this is the bedrock of what we do. This is how you set up to sell simplified issue. Those of you that have been in the field so far, how many of you are running into type 2 diabetics? How many of you are running? Do you realize when I started doing this 19 years ago, if I would have 2 type 2 diabetics a quarter, that was about normal? The last few months I was in the field, many times I would go out on a Saturday and have 3 in a day. So guys, that's why this is so important. Now, this is the way you sell them on simplified issue without even trying. Now, one of the things that I will ask is this. I'll say, let's pretend, Rich, that this morning I have the appointment at 6 o'clock at night. You called your State Farm, your Allstate, your New York Life, your Prudential agent. It doesn't matter. You said, George, I got this guy coming over here to talk to me about mortgage protection tonight. Would you give me a quote for regular life insurance? Now, you want to see them squirm, because they've either thought about it or already done it or they're going to do it. So just know, remember those of you that bought that week of timeshare? I know when I was working in timeshare, I knew you had a sales meeting before you got there. Honey, I don't care how good it looks, we're not buying anything today. And all of you had that sales meeting?
Yes.
Absolutely. But you still went home with a week of timeshare.
Absolutely.
Well, you went home with a week of timeshare because we knew you had that sales meeting, so we knew how they were coming. So I know this is a meeting they're going to have. So why not bust them right in the nose with it right up front? So I sit down and I said, George, let's pretend your agent gets all the information from me. He says, okay, you're going to be a standard risk, and for the amount of coverage you want for a standard risk is going to run about $100 a month. After they stick you with a needle, guys, I want that needle looking that big, going right in their arm. I said, after they do that, they come back and say, oh my gosh, you are so healthy. I think we can get this for you for $80 a month. What is that? That's preferred. They've heard that term, but they don't know what it means. But say they do the blood work and it comes back and they say, oh my gosh, you're 25 or 30 pounds overweight. Or if you don't want to offend anybody with the weight, you can say, your liver enzymes are elevated. Most of my people, Larry, don't even know they have liver enzymes. So they come back and say, let's have the insurance, but it's going to be table B. Well, Brett, what table B mean? Nobody knows what table B means. It means they're charging you 50% more. So instead of $100 a month, it's $150 a month. Type 2 diabetes is automatic with all carriers. Table C, that's $175 a month. Table D is $200 a month, and these ratings go all the way out to $400 a month. Beyond that, it's a decline. Okay? That's the world that your State Farm agent, or I always use the name, and I use George. I didn't mean to pick George on this. I said, that's the world George works in, Gene. However, because of this letter, and I flip it over, I said, because of this letter, you having a mortgage, we work in that world too, but because of your letter, they said, let's do this. Let's take this whole bunch in this category here, all the way out to table D, put them in one category, charge them $120 a month. George, you don't have to do an exam. You want to see the look of relief on their face when they realize no blood work. They know they're 30 pounds overweight. Everybody figures they're going to be out here somewhere, just by nature. I mean, really, most of you in the room here, how many of you think you'd really fall in that standard or preferred category? Okay. Right. Now, all of you that say that, stick your hand up. That really believe that. All right. Do you realize that those of you stuck your hand up, 45% of you will be rated or declined when you do the insurance exam? How do I know that? Remember when we first started doing this? We stuck everybody with a needle? 45. Now these are 45% of the people we thought would pass the exam didn't. Pardon?
Oh, too many cocktails and.
Yeah. Well,
Liver enzymes.
They just
in
didn't
some
stuff
states
the
you've got
test.
another problem.
I saw it for the first time on an application, I can't remember what it was. They actually said excluding marijuana, I couldn't believe that.
In
It was
Colorado?
the I wish I could remember.
I wish you could too, we need to talk later. But my point here is, guys, now when they're confronted with another agent coming in behind you, they're gonna stick them with a needle, it's not gonna happen. Because they don't wanna take the risk of that happening. So that right there is the bedrock of who we are and what we do and why it's so important. Now, I wanna close out on, I'm gonna go to the second sale at this point. Well, no, I'm not, because this is important. Once I do that, then I explain to people, there's 3 ways to do mortgage protection. This is important. Full mortgage, partial mortgage, and critical protection. All right, now, you're sitting there with a guy that's got a $400,000 mortgage and he's an insulin-dependent diabetic, healthy otherwise. What are your chances of getting him covered on anything? Slim and none. So if I just say, well, Rich, I can't cover you because, what's his reaction? Well, bless God, I'll find somebody that will.
Right.
I'm not that sick, I'm okay. So what you do is all in the posturing, Marshall. You come in and say there's 3 ways to do mortgage protection. Some people will do the full mortgage. Usually the folks over 50, not so much, because it's not as necessary and the price is a little higher. So they may do what we call a partial mortgage. A fourth or a third or a half or 3/4 of the mortgage, they'll do that. Some of our people are in a situation that because of health reasons or something like that, they'll do what we call critical protection. And this is, I see this a lot with people in their late 60s and 70s and so on. Mom and dad owe $50,000 on the house. It's worth $200,000. If mom and dad die, the bank doesn't want the $50,000 next month. All they want is the next month's payment. But if the family's not in a position to make that payment, what happens? We've got a situation where we have a fire sale. You know, they have to sell it as quickly as possible. If they can only make one payment, they got 1 month to get it out of the house. So instead of getting $200,000 for the house, they may get $70,000 or $75,000. So they give all that equity to a complete stranger. So what we do here is we show the family, give them enough money to make the house payment for a year or 2 or 3 so that they get that equity out. So this is protecting the equity in the house. Now I've established, right, they haven't seen a payment at all, but I've established how this is going to help them so that when I show them the critical protection, they're not thinking about, I'm only getting $10,000 or $15,000 worth of coverage. They're getting something for $90 a month. I'm protecting $150,000 equity.
It's not how much, it's what it does.
What it does. So you set it up here before you show them the numbers. So when you show them the number, it makes all the sense in the world. That is a very, very important technique to use. How do we get another sale in the house? All right, now some of you will say on the Mutual of Omaha Child's policy, well, just ask them. Have you ever thought, do you need insurance on the baby? No. Or grandkids? No. But if you pose the question this way, have you ever been tempted to buy one of those Gerber plans? Everybody's been tempted. I get 1 out of 10, maybe 1 out of 20 say no, but all the others I got a shot at. So I'll say, have you ever been tempted to buy one of those Gerber plans? And you drop your voice just a little bit like, well, yeah, I have. The only reason I ask is we have a plan that it's $30,000. Why would I sell them $10,000 or $15,000? We got some apps in the other day for $4 a month. I want to jump off a bridge again. $4 a month, that's not worth my time. So I don't talk about $10,000. I talk about 30. I said, so we've got a plan, it's $30,000. You don't need $30,000 on the child, an infant, you really don't. But what this does, it allows that child as an adult, no matter what their health is, to buy an additional $30,000 4 more times. So what the grandparent's doing is they're setting up an insurance trust for $150,000, and for an infant it's $10 a month. Guys, every one of you in this room, if you're seeing 10 people a week, you should be writing somewhere between 5 and 20 of those policies. Yes, sir.
And just do the math, guys. At $10 a month, it's $120 per year. It would take them over 100 years to break even at $30,000. They can never reach the 30 grand at $10 a month. It is an investment, period.
And it's an insurance trust
Legacy.
that can be established today by a grandparent. Because how many kids today playing football, soccer, baseball, and even diving will end up with a concussion? And guys, these things are serious. It guarantees that child can get that $30,000 of coverage times 4 as an adult. I hope some of these things, the accident claim with UHL is $21.40 a month for $100,000 worth of coverage. And do they need a health license for that?
They do not need a health
Do not
license.
need a health license for that, up to age 60. And if they're kind enough not to die on us from an accident, at the end of 20 years, they give all their money back. Do you know how much it cost? 70 cents a day. That's the same as a big gulp at 7-Eleven. How can they say no to that? And seniors selling it to a 55 or 60-year-old, you know how many seniors a year die because of a fall? They die because of an accident. Those are just 2 ways there. What am I trying to do? I'm not trying to teach you how to sell second. I'm trying to have you think in a different way. Have a different mindset for this, because if I change how you think, then we got a chance on changing how this all turns out. I hope some of these things will help. Now, I want to thank you for the Les Brown things, because, yeah, there you go. I want to thank you that because I made some notes here. You can't see the picture when you're in the frame. I love it. Guys, hope this changes how you think. It helps you out a little bit. I want to turn the meeting back over to my friend and compadre in this. I have said this on numerous occasions. I do try to add value.